I know it's tough, but it's time to forget about politics.
Welcome to the Hack Learning Podcast, progressive education that provides right-now solutions and never requires a 5-year plan. And now, here's your host, a man who believes old-school teachers should be put in a timeout, Mark Barnes.
How can we forget about politics at a time like this? I'm sure you're wondering. You might say it's nearly impossible, right? So, yeah, I do think we should forget about politics right now, though, and we should teach tolerance. So at the time of this broadcast of the Hack Learning Podcast, we are fresh out of the events in Charlottesville, Virginia from August 12th. Protests around the removal of a Civil War statue. And as you know, those protests turned violent. And what has happened in the aftermath of this is the president has made a lot of statements about it. He's retracted some of those statements, and then he's come back and he's followed up and sort of retracted the retractions. And what I'm seeing a lot of, and as I'm sure you are, is a lot of backlash from people about what the president has done. And then, of course, people who want to defend the president for what he has done and tell other people they're wrong. And what we've done is we've politicized a really tragic event. And I think as educators, we need to really think about this event. And sure, we want to acknowledge that what happened is awful and tragic and despicable. But we also have to acknowledge that it did happen, and it's something we should talk about, and we should probably take into our classrooms and have a discussion with our kids about it, because they're thinking about it. They're on Facebook. They're on social media. They're around people who are discussing it. They're hearing what the president has said and what people then are saying and how they're reacting to those statements. And that's really where the thoughts are. The thoughts now center on a president and his reactions to something instead of looking at the facts of the events and then the impact that the event has on society now and moving forward. And I think we have to get away from the politics. And I've been guilty of this. You know, my first reaction, too, is to say something about what the president does. I mean, there's so much of that, right? I mean, it's just social media, the news, your nighttime, TV talk shows. That's what it's all about. Saturday Night Live. I mean, Saturday Night Live has enough material now, it seems like, for years. Every show, is something about what's going on in the White House. But this is something different. And as I said, I was guilty of it, but I thought a lot about it. I've been reading about it, and I've been on Twitter and Facebook and been in conversations with people, and it's so much about the president that, honestly, the event now is one more thing is about the president. And it's not about the horrible thing that happened. And it's not to say people are ignoring that. I mean, people died. But the problem is we're looking at it, I believe, through the wrong lens. And as educators, we need to step back. We need to say, what can we do to turn this into something that is a valuable lesson for our kids? So in hack learning, in the style of hack learning, what I did is I thought about this and I thought, well, what's the problem and what's the hack and what can we do? Because that's what we do. So I think that the problem is really humans hating other humans because they are different. I mean, isn't that really what this horrible event in Charlottesville was about? They decide to take down a statue, and protesters come out and say, you're making a statement by taking down this statue, and this, of course, turns violent. And what it's really about is people who hate people. I mean, if we just, boil everything down, that's really what it is. It's about people who hate people. We hate you because you're a different color, because you stand for different things, because you have different religious beliefs, because you look different, you behave differently, you think differently, and because of that, we're going to hate you. And groups that hate came out in mass on August 12th in Charlottesville, Virginia, and they demonstrated how much they hate. They took one act, the removal of a statue, and said, here's an opportunity for hate. So that's the problem, the real problem. The real problem isn't what the president said. Whether you agree with it, disagree with it, this can't be political. And as educators, we have a responsibility. And I know, people push back and they say, well, Mark, I have to teach math and science and foreign language and, whatever I teach. And, it's the parents' job to teach tolerance and to teach their kids not to hate. We can't continue to think that way. That's archaic. We just can't do that anymore. We've got different kids now. The white supremacists who showed up in Charlottesville on August 12th, 2017, they had parents, right? And they weren't taught not to hate. In fact, unfortunately, many of them were taught by their parents to hate. So as educators now, I think we've evolved past just the old one-room schoolhouse, break out the books and teach kids math and science and other subjects. I think now, if we're going to get kids engaged, we have to get them to believe that they are in a safe place and that they're in a tolerant place. Because we know from research that kids go to school oftentimes afraid. So we have to look at these things because they're seeing this and they're knowing what's going on, and many of them are perplexed by it, and they don't know how to think, or their thoughts are being shaped, and oftentimes they're being shaped the wrong way. So I think the hack for this is simple. We have to teach tolerance. And it seems so obvious. As I was typing the show notes page, which, you can find over at hacklearning.org/tolerance. And when I was typing this up and I was saying that we need to teach tolerance, it seems so obvious. I thought, am I really typing this? I mean, do people not get this? And it's not to suggest that you don't get it, because I think you do, but I think it's one of those things that it's just often overlooked. Or we think that we're modeling it throughout the year, and maybe we are, but sometimes that modeling, it's just not enough. Sometimes we have to face it head on. So I think what we have to do is use an event like this deplorable thing that's happened in Charlottesville, and we have to face it, and we have to bring kids in and say, we're going to talk about this. And we have to say, you know what, we're not going to politicize it. We're going to talk about the events, the actions, and their impact on us and on our society and what we need to do and how we can use these to move forward. So the problem is hatred. The hack is teach tolerance, and we need something to do tomorrow because we have to act on this right now. We can't wait. It's front and center. If you're listening to this episode around the time of these events, then it's front and center. And if you're listening later, there's probably something else, unfortunately, that's happened that maybe is about hatred. So we have to face it when it's front and center. So what I think we need to do is we need to tell our students that we want to have a productive discussion about hate and intolerance. And if we're using Charlottesville as our example, we need to share facts. And there are facts out there. I know we're all worried about fake news now, but there are facts out there, and you can find them. And I linked one article over on the show notes that you can use that just talks about what happened on August 12th. And then we also need to be clear with our kids that statements by the president are not part of this discussion. Have a discussion and keep the politics out. Remind kids they're welcome to their political opinions. We're not going to suggest that we're saying that their beliefs are wrong. You can support the president, you can be against the president. That's fine, but that's not what we're doing right now. We want to discuss the impact of hate in our country and how to avoid it in the future. Be emphatic This is what you want to do tomorrow if you're having this discussion. Be emphatic that hating others because they are different is intolerable in your class, at your school, in your community, and in our society. There's no acceptable pushback from kids or anyone on this issue. We have to teach kids that hate is unacceptable. And that's what this is about. It's not about politics, it's about tolerance. And if we tolerate, we cannot hate. And this is what we have to make clear. And then I think tomorrow you also start planning. And planning can be something that, takes time, but you can start it tomorrow. Invite students to create a plan of tolerance for your class, for your school. This is the kind of grassroots effort that can make a difference on a much grander scale later. In order to make a difference in society, in our community, and around the world, we have to start small. We have to start where we live. Imagine if everyone went to school tomorrow and in their classes, they had some discussion about hate and about the impact that it has on us and the violence. If we're going to look at Charlottesville, let's look at the violence. When people die over a protest, it's a horrible thing. I'm not saying that protests are all bad, but we have to look at them for what they are, and we have to look at the decisions people make. And when they're out of hate, they're dangerous. And in many cases, they're fatal. And we have to explain to kids that it's unacceptable. No matter what they're hearing anywhere else, it's unacceptable. This is a really important topic. Not that other things we talk about on the Hack Learning Podcast aren't important, but many people have been speaking out on this issue, and I'm thankful that a lot of people listen to this show and read our blog and read Hack Learning books and read the Hack Learning Twitter feed and Facebook page. So we have an audience and a voice, and I think we have a responsibility. And in this case, that responsibility is to encourage you to face a very serious thing head on in your classroom. And on the show notes page over at hacklearning.org/tolerance, I say there's pushback. We deal with this in our books. And what I'm asking, though, in this case is for you to tell us what it is. What's your pushback? What fears do you have about facing these kinds of things in class? They exist. They're real. And I think we'd like to face them. Head on over there, put them in comments. This will be pinned to our Facebook page. Over on Facebook, you can just look up Hack Learning. It's facebook.com/Hack Learning Series. It's pinned at the top. You can comment there. This is an important discussion, and we need to help each other face this the right way. As always, I appreciate you listening, and I will be very eager to hear what you have to say about this topic.
You've been listening to the Hack Learning Podcast with edu-hacker extraordinaire, Mark Barnes. If your ears can stand it, listen to more at hacklearningpodcast.com and read a Hack Learning book for crying out loud. They're smart, practical, and shockingly inexpensive. Grab one today at hacklearningbooks.com.